Hey, deserving listeners, I thought I would continue watching TikToks on TikTok. I would just search for Love is Blind TikToks. Today is the day of the reunion for me, and I didn't realize that it doesn't come out until later today. Usually when they say episodes come out on Wednesday, they will actually be available midnight the night before, right? But the reunion isn't being made available until later today. There are reports that maybe it's going to be a live broadcast, but I had heard that they pre-recorded it. So what do I know? But anyway, I thought I would just watch some more TikToks while I wait for the reunion to be aired. So let's watch some more TikToks.
Why are you so caught up on race?
Okay, yeah. So someone asked, it looks like an AMA of some sort. They asked AD, why are you so caught up on race? And she's like, yeah. Yeah. What? Now, I don't know. Maybe there's some data there that would justify that kind of, it's not a question, it's an accusation. Basically, someone saying, you focus too much on race. And of course, we know this sentiment in the world. It's a privilege. It usually comes from privilege or some other problem. At least on the show, I guess the only thing they would be referring to is when she was talking to Ken about having mixed race kids. And, we saw an edit. And yeah, I had some questions about what was being communicated about that as a mixed race person myself. Is it rational to ask that question and think about it? Yeah. It'd be weird if it didn't cross your mind because our society is a certain way. So is that what they're talking about? But anyway, so AD is like, If anything on the show, I saw evidence that, at least in the edit, that AD wasn't very focused on race. There were many opportunities for race to be brought up, like the bean dip, all that kind of stuff, and the commenting on her body all the time. So we didn't see her say anything along those lines.
You guys got to do better. You got to do better. You have to do better. Why are you so...
All right, that's the end of that video. All right, in my search on TikTok, I see that Micah is trending. So let's watch her video. She's talking about Laura from this current season. Laura on Love is Blind reading The Man to Filth. Oh, reading that man to filth. Reading that man to filth. Is that some sort of slang like you are seeing through the BS or something?
Receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, in everything. Receipts, proof.
Yeah, that sounds so. It's one of those TikTok things. I'm not really a fan of that kind of. Apparently, people are a fan of it, where you take a clip, an audio clip, and then you lip sync it or something. I don't know. I'm sure in 5 to 10 years, this style will be very passé. Although I'm sure in 5 or 10 years, these reaction videos will be passé. So whatever. All right, this next video, also Micah. It's interesting that of the trending things about Love is Blind, Micah is in the mix currently. By the way, if you don't hear any audio, it's because I probably had to take out music because it's just playing a song. Looks like Laura and Jess, and is that Pee in a Pool girl? When you didn't find your man on Love is Blind, but you found your girls. Although, is that... sometimes when people put their full getup on, I don't recognize them. It's not Chelsea. It's not Amy. It's not AD. We see Laura. That's not Brittany, right? Yeah. Is it Amber? No, it's not Amber. So that must be Mackenzie, who pees in the pool. All right, more Micah trending stuff. So let's watch this.
Because, Majesty, only Paolo can take this and this.
All right, so they're showing some screenshots from the show. I imagine that's Micah behind the phones.
And give you
A princess.
Well, she's laughing. So is this like a humble brag or is it a joke? What's the message? That she looks disgusting in the other pictures and now she looks super pretty? I don't understand TikTok. I'm trying to figure out a charitable interpretation of this. I don't know. I'm old. All right, well, it's late and I won't react to this video, but from what I understand, it's revealing that Trevor is a very questionable person. We don't know if the allegations are true, but there were screenshots indicating that he's in a relationship and he's a jerk face and he's a bad person. So, I don't know. Could be all lies, could be all true. Let's move on. All right, this next video is from Chrissy Clark. Let's watch this one.
The contract that Love is Blind people, characters, whatever you want to call them, signed. As a disclaimer, I am a journalist. I have been professionally working as a journalist for 5 years now, and I am not required to legally disclose to you my sources of information, merely the information I obtained.
All right, well, so it's hard for us to know if this is accurate, but she's saying she's a journalist, and she's revealing the contract here. That's interesting.
In an effort to keep my sources safe, I will be reading screenshots of the...
And yeah, we could understand why that would be, that the source, whether an employee or a cast member, probably an employee, would risk being sued or fired or something, so confidentiality would be expected. So let's see what she is reading here.
contract. I highlighted them myself, but these are screenshots I took in order to keep my sources safe. And I have double checked this contract with multiple other contracts to ensure that they are all real and valid. Okay, first part that stood out to me was section 1 that reads, the footage and materials...
So first off, I do know that this is the case, I think. I can't remember who told me this, but because they're saying it's a contract between the cast member and what they're calling the Charlotte's Singles Project, not Love is Blind. That's what I was told. The production, when they were reaching out to people, they were calling it this. And you could imagine legit, honest reasons why they would do that, because maybe they're trying to not attract people that are trying to get on the show Love is Blind, right? And so they obscure it by calling it the Charlotte Singles Project. It could be nefarious too, right? It could be a way of sucking people in that don't know what they're getting into. But anyway, let's watch more.
Programs and the advertisements may be exploited throughout the universe at any time in perpetuity in any and all media, now known and hereafter devised without any monetary compensation to me whatsoever. So we'll get to how much they get compensated for later, but these people are not getting paid for anything outside of their direct time on Love is Blind.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. I've signed contracts like that myself. In a sense, I have those kinds of expectations, and I've had contracts that I've had people sign for me. Like if I have someone on my channel, I interview them, and I later make a different video from that footage, like a TikTok video, for example, a short section of the video, and I make some money from it or something. Or I don't know, I sell merch. I wouldn't do that, but lawyers would be concerned about that, right? That they would want the option, because you never know what the show will want to do down the line. Maybe they want to make some commemorative poster with all the different cast on it and make money, make profit, and they want to make sure that the person who is going to be on that poster know that they're not entitled to any of those funds. You might say that's unfair, but that's pretty standard, and they're disclosing it. So I think that's all that we're hearing. Looked at it in a certain way, it looks nefarious, right? Like they're trying to gouge, they're trying to harm. Another consideration, like for me, I might say I want to make a TikTok from one of my interviews or something, and I can't get a hold of the person. They won't return my DMs, or they've changed their phone number or something. Does that mean I can't make that TikTok? Well, if you work it into the contract, you say, I have the right to use this footage in whatever way I want. There's probably a clause in here that, because I've heard that there's a clause in the contract around editing, right? That they reserve the right to edit it however they want. And that's why I would never go, and we've seen evidence of that. And that's why I would never go on a show like this. That's why I would never recommend anyone go on a show like this, because you just have no idea. And you have reasons to be suspicious of their motives. The risk isn't super high. I think most people get a mostly accurate edit. There are some notable examples, like with Jackie having that scene edited, and both Jackie and Marshall said, I think, so did Josh, that it was edited out of sequence, and it made her look bad. But did Jackie present enough things in the accurate edit that would cause a lot of people to dislike her? Yeah. So I don't think it made it worse, but I don't think it changed the entire reaction from the public. I don't stand by that edit. I think that's atrocious. It's immoral. I think it should be illegal, honestly. I think there should be a clause that says if you purposely edit in a way that is malicious and harmful, then that's not okay, But they want the freedom, right? Plus, in the vast majority of the time, when they're editing things, they're not trying to harm anybody, but they know that they can't just show the footage because it's literally thousands of hours of video footage. They have to condense. And as a part of that condensation, they have to make some sacrifices with what really happened. They can't have that paragraph that you said, even though it is kind of relevant. It's not as relevant as the thing you said just before and the thing you said just after. And it is not accurate, but it is generally the story that happened. And the show doesn't want there to be a lawsuit because they didn't show, they would be completely paralyzed in the editing room and forced to just show all the footage, which no one would watch. Believe me, as someone that has shot footage kind of like this, like I've shot a wedding before many years ago. And if you just don't edit it and just say, here's all the footage, believe me, it would be so boring. I mean, some bits are interesting for sure. And it is nice to hand over all that footage because sometimes the couple will just want to watch all that because you never know what kind of bit in there they want to see. But in terms of what you present to the public, you would never do that. Anyway, so I'm not hearing anything that I'm like, ooh, that's terrible. I'm guessing all reality shows, like I said, I have things like this. I imagine that regular, respectable shows have things like, if you're a guest on Sesame Street, I'm guessing there's a clause like this. So there's nothing nefarious about that, unless I'm missing something. And I want to be clear, I'm not defending the show. If I had my way, I would change a lot of things. There would be unions, but I wouldn't change this because they're a business and they want the right to be able to make profit. That's what businesses do off of the footage that they make. They don't want to hand over control to the cast. It's rational, and you can decide not to be on the show once you read that.
The producer has access to all the film, all the footage that they do there, and they cannot get paid for it. In my opinion, I think this is the craziest part of the contract. So it reads, I further understand that my appearance, depiction, and portrayal in and in connection with the program or otherwise, and my actions and the actions of others displayed in and in connection with the program or otherwise, may be disparaging, defamatory, embarrassing, or of an otherwise unfavorable nature, may expose me to public ridicule, humiliation, or condemnation, and may portray me in a false light.
Yeah, this is what I was getting to earlier. One, a lot of that is just covering their bases when they're not deceiving the public through the edit, because you're stating when you agree to be on this show, they're telling you, you understand that being on the show can be used, the footage can be used to purposely ridicule, humiliate, and condemn you, even in a false light. Do you want to be on this show? If so, sign on the X. Now, some people might make the argument that the cast, and I've heard this, I think Nick Thompson told me this, that when he read the contract, the handlers, not the lawyers, but the people you interact with, your sort of friends who work on the show, will, say, this is just paperwork. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and read it, but I wouldn't take this kind of, it's just legalese stuff. It's downplayed. Whereas in my profession, we have these kinds of contracts, if you will, consent to treatment and disclosures that need to be given to clients before they begin treatment with therapists. All therapists in the United States have ethical and legal requirements regarding these disclosures. And one of the disclosures is along these lines, that we disclose to clients that therapy is meant to help, but it might not be effective. In fact, research shows some people in therapy are actually worse off afterwards. It's not common, but it can happen, and you need to understand that is a possibility. We can talk about the likelihood of that moving forward, but you need to know that. Now, as a therapist, I can easily just bury that in a lot of words and know that the clients won't read any of that. But as therapists, we care about our clients, and so we train and talk and hopefully do emphasize, there's a lot of words in the disclosure statement, in the consent to treatment, but we will highlight certain things that we really want them to understand, like what I just said. So is it possible that the cast are being tricked? Yeah, absolutely. And that would be one of the things I would change. But they're given an opportunity to read it. And I can't imagine very many people, even people who don't follow reality TV, I can't imagine a lot of people don't understand that concept. That reality TV doesn't guarantee that you're not going to become a villain on the show. Like when Matthew was perseverating on the everyone loves an underdog, right? I think he was thinking along those lines, right? So what do we say about that? Do we say that they're exploiting people? I think you can make an argument that is possible. I think they're exploiting humans' natural bias that, well, I'm a good person, and they just figure that no one, generally speaking, is self-aware enough to know that they're not perfect. Most people think they're coming from a good place. They don't think they're coming across in a bad way, and then the show will exploit that. I think so. That's one of the things I would change, is not only unionization, but there'd also be an advocate that would, for example, with this, when this is being brought up as the potential cast member is going over that, the advocate would be a third party tasked with really helping the cast member and wouldn't be working for the production. The production would have to pay for that person, in a similar way that on movie sets, the production has to pay for a teacher to be on set to tutor the kids, or the production has to pay for, I can't remember what, the sex scene consultant or something. You know what I mean? That person has a lot of power, hopefully. Or to the armorer, the weapons expert, the prop. I went down a whole rabbit hole about the Alec Baldwin, Rust, Hannah, I can't remember her last name, but I watched the trial, I watched all these experts, and what you want when you have guns on the set is you want an expert that is in charge of that, who has power. And the experts that I heard said that if there's some danger of a risk that's happening, they have the right and the responsibility to stop the shoot. In the middle of a very expensive shoot, they could have 100 extras and all these cameras and special effects. And that person, if they see something happening that is of risk, they're supposed to stop the shoot and go, no, we got to fix that problem with that gun, or stop pointing that at people. Like, you're not supposed to point that gun at people. Even though there's no rounds, don't point that. Let's bring all the guns. You want those kinds of people around. And on these kinds of shows, you want that. Of course, production doesn't want that, because that would slow down production and limit editing, and would make it harder to cast people, and therefore the cost would go up and their profits would go down. But if we pass laws, that's what we need. That's why all those things happen, is regulation and laws. Then it forces them all to do it, and so all of their prices would go up, and thus their competition would not be affected. Because right now, if a show decides to implement some of these things, they would have to charge more to the network or something, right? And networks might say, it's too expensive. So they don't have an incentive. That's the way capitalism works. So you need regulation. Anyway, so I'll say that. But I'm not surprised this is in there. I don't think this should surprise anybody. It'd be weird if they didn't have this in here. And I suspect that at the very least, the authors of this would say, look, we don't want to mislead. We don't want to lie to the public. But we can't have a situation where the cast thinks or interprets, or a jury for that matter, that we humiliated someone and then we are liable for that. Like, we can't be sitting there worrying about that and being sued 5 years later for a show in which we filmed it and then we edited it. And yeah, maybe the edit wasn't favorable to the person, but we were telling a story. This is entertainment. So I don't feel great about that being the case, that some people's lives are being ruined. In fact, I find that to be quite immoral and horrible. I also blame the public for watching a show in which, like even with Jackie, for example, in season 4, we can criticize and go, I don't know if that's okay. But to try to ruin her life, to attack her, like, that's not the show's fault. That's the public's fault. Now you could say, well, the show knows that is likely to happen. They're literally even kind of mentioning that. Yeah, they're all responsible, but they're not entirely responsible. And I'm guessing they don't even entirely know what the reaction from the public's going to be. So, yeah, I'm not scandalized by this being in the contract. I guess maybe just because I knew that it would be.
They're admitting the quiet part out loud here, and this is why they don't want this contract to get out, because they edit people to make them look bad on purpose. The reason they have those little gold cups is so that they can take things.
And I'll tell you, as someone who has looked into all these kinds of things for various different reasons, when you look at the fine print of any terms and conditions, right, when you click OK or I agree, if you look through everything with some products, some services, some things like this, there will be passages like this where you will go, what? And when you actually talk to, like, for example, for me, I hired lawyers to help me with these kinds of forms with employees or other sorts of people to protect me, right? Not to give me permission to harm other people, but you hire lawyers to protect you, to give you legal advice, to help you to survive. And like below, actually, in the description, if you care to look, there's a disclaimer there. And I had lawyers develop that. I didn't just come up with that one myself. And there were several versions, several drafts of that one disclaimer and a lot of other things. And in those drafts, like the first few drafts I got, I was reading it and it sounded really harsh. I thought, whoa, all right, just chiming in here. The rest of this video is just going to be for members of the channel. So if you want to become a member, you can click the join button. Otherwise, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.